Hello, everyone. Welcome to Mission Millennial Z Alpha Generations, where we share the other side of the creation story with today's youth. Now, we have an interesting video for you today. It's an interview with Neil deGrasse Tyson and Stephen Hawking. Now, if you don't know who Neil is a popular astrophysicist who has programs on different channels and stuff. I like to watch his Star Talk program. He's an atheist. He doesn't really call himself that. He likes to use other words, but he's basically a naturalist. And he has a lot of good scientific shows where he explains things and breaks them down. There's a lot of interesting things. I like watching it. I'm subscribed to his Facebook group, and I watch his videos almost daily now. He's quite entertaining, very Holmesy type of personality, and so I enjoy that. And he sort of reminds me of Michio Kaku, another friendly, down-to-earth scientist. I used to listen to Michio's radio program when I lived in New York, and I used to listen to it every Sunday religiously. It was a very, very interesting science talk. He explains things scientifically and breaks things down for us peons to understand. Now, Stephen Hawking is a physicist. He's deceased now, but he is considered one of the greatest geniuses at of our time. And he's an atheist too. He was an ardent atheist. He didn't make much bones about that. But he is to be respected for if for nothing else, beside the science, of course. But if nothing else, his persistence. He had Lou Gehrig's disease, which put him in a wheelchair. And that's a horrible way to go. But he had it. I don't know the technicalities, why he didn't die quickly, but he had it for decades. Yet he pursued his career relentlessly. It's a good example in that area. Now, they're going to talk about a number of subjects that we're going to review, but what I want to hone in on is his interpretation of the beginning. In fact, I have a book, and you guys probably already seen me hawk this book. It's by Stephen Meyer, Return of the God Hypothesis, 3 scientific discoveries that reveal the mind behind the universe. We're going to read one page of this book where he quotes Stephen Hawking, where he reviews Stephen Hawking, where he critiques him. So let's get into the interview, and then we'll talk a little more about that later.
Professor Hawking, thanks for agreeing to be on Star Talk. And let me just start off with the first question, perhaps the most pressing question to us all. What's your favorite food? For me, it's pizza.
Oysters.
Oysters. What's your favorite equation? I know you've got one.
The equation I discovered relating the entropy of a black hole to the area of its horizon. S equals A/4.
You hold the same endowed chair that Isaac Newton did. I'm just wondering if we had some way to communicate through time with him and tell him about what life is like today. Are there any questions, any problems you might want to hand him to solve?
Is the solar system stable? And what happens to a star that cannot support itself against its own gravity?
So you're thinking if Newton saw those questions, he might give us deeper insights into black holes.
Now, this is interesting that they both revere Isaac Newton, Sir Isaac Newton. Now, the reason why I say that, because in popular culture, you hear a lot about how you can't be a true scientist and be a theist or a Christian. In fact, if we allowed intelligent design to be taught to the public or in schools, if we allowed that, the whole scientific enterprise would come crumbling down upon itself. Its whole rotten edifice would just destruct, and you hear this all the time. It's not just once in a while. I hear this quite often that Christians or theists aren't scientists or anti-science and all that. But go figure. All the scientific pioneers, maybe I should throw that caveat in there, most of them were Christians and or plain theists. Think about that. Sir Isaac Newton is considered one of the GOATs, one of the top 3 of all time scientists. Neil calls him, my man. He refers to Newton a lot, and so does Stephen Hawking. Obviously, reveres the man that he brought him up. He would want to go back and ask him questions, right? So I think we can dispel that myth right here and now that theists are anti-science or against science, or that the scientific enterprise would go belly up if we taught intelligent design as a plausible alternative to everything coming from nothing by chance. All right, let's go back.
I'd be curious. Stephen, you've been in that zero-G airplane. I've always wanted to go. I just wondered what it felt like for you.
It was wonderful to float weightless, free of my wheelchair. I could have gone on, and on, and on.
Well, one day I'll try to do that too. See what that's like. So, Stephen.
Now, if you have about $250,000, Blue Origin might also give you that opportunity. I think that's what it costs. I think it's Blue Origin. All right, let's continue on. He's getting to the point of what I want to talk about, which is the beginning of the universe.
Everyone wants to know, what was around before the Big Bang?
Nothing was around before the Big Bang. According to Einstein's general theory of relativity, space and time together form a space-time continuum or manifold which is not flat, but curved by the matter and energy in it. I adopt the Euclidean approach to quantum gravity to describe the beginning of the universe. In this, ordinary real time is replaced by imaginary time, which behaves like a fourth direction of space. In the Euclidean approach, the history of the universe in imaginary time is a four-dimensional curved surface, like the surface of the Earth, but with 2 more dimensions. Jim Hartle and I proposed a no-boundary condition. The boundary condition of the universe is that it has no boundary.
Okay.
In order terms, the Euclidean space-time is a closed surface without edge, like the surface of the Earth. One can regard imaginary and real time as beginning at the South Pole, which is a smooth point of space-time where the normal laws of physics hold. There is nothing south of the South Pole, so there was nothing around before the Big Bang.
Now that's very interesting when he said there was nothing around before the Big Bang. Nothing south of the South Pole. If there was nothing around, then how did the universe come into existence? Of course, we theists say a supernatural cause had to bring the universe into existence, right? Nothing can't bring anything into existence. In fact, Stephen Hawking says, because there's a law such as gravity, quoting him, the universe can and will create itself from nothing. But that's a logical contradiction. Something can't cause itself to come into existence. Something would have to exist before it existed in order to bring itself into existence. And that's a logical impossibility. Now, he talks about, if you read his stuff, and Steve Myers does go into this in fair depth, he talks about a quantum wave. But a quantum wave, according to the Bohr, Guth, and Vilenkin theorem, is not nothing. It is something. But let's go to Stephen Meyer in his book, Return of the God Hypothesis, and read a few quotes, because a lot of the things Stephen just said went over your head and it went over mine. And we need to get professional help to critique other professionals at times, and we make the decision which worldview makes better sense. So let's look at this. Quoting from Stephen, the laws of physics and the origin of the universe. Proponents of quantum cosmology frequently claim the laws of physics explain the origin of the universe. For example, Hawking asserts, quote, because there's a law such as gravity, the universe can and will create itself from nothing. I just quoted that earlier. Cross echoes this claim, quote, the laws themselves require our universe to come into existence, to develop and evolve. When Krauss and Hawking say the laws of nature or a law such as gravity explains the origin of the universe, they refer to the whole mathematical superstructure of quantum cosmology, the universal wave function, the Wheeler-DeWitt equation, which Steve Meyer gets into earlier in the book, and current ideas about quantum gravity. They also assume that the laws of physics cause or explain specific events, including the origin of the universe. The claim that the laws of physics cause events to occur sounds obviously true to many scientists because we hear it so often, and we are trained to think the laws of nature as the ultimate explanatory principles in nature. Unfortunately, this idea conceals an imprecision in thought and makes what philosophers and logicians call a category mistake. To see why, consider the following illustration. Now, this illustration really is helpful, okay? This is very helpful for us to break this whole technical issue down. I love when scientists give us an illustration, a homesy, down-to-earth illustration to help us wrap our minds around these deep principles. Here's the illustration. Quoting, if one billiard ball of some given mass bashes into another billiard ball, the law of conservation of momentum accurately describes the interaction. It will even allow us to make predictions about, for example, the change in velocity of the second ball if we know the masses of the two balls and the velocity of the first ball as required by the equation describing momentum exchange. Nevertheless, the equation describing that interaction, the law of conservation of momentum, does not cause the second ball to move. That's important. Let's stop it right here. It doesn't cause the second ball to move. Laws don't move anything. They describe. Laws are descriptors, not causal agents. Let's get back to his quote. The cause of the movement of the second ball is the movement of the first ball. The cause of the second ball's movement is an antecedent event, the prior movement of the first ball coming into contact with the second. The law simply describes that interaction. And the movement of the first ball is caused by what? Someone striking the ball with a cue stick. In this analogy, the person playing pool with the universe is a supernatural God. That's the implication here, and it's spoken of throughout this book. A similar, closing up now with what Stephen had to say, a similar but even deeper confusion attends Krauss's and Hawking's claim about the law of gravity expressed as a mathematical equation. The law of gravity does not cause material objects or space and energy to come into existence. Instead, it describes how material objects interact with each other and with space once they already exist. Page 370. So I think that perfectly summarizes the error of Stephen Hawking and other people, other naturalistic scientists, when they tried to attribute creation to a law. Laws come from lawgivers, by the way. But let's get back to the interview.
Even will we ever have the ability to travel backwards in time? I'm thinking not, simply because if we ever did obtain that ability, we would have met somebody by now from the future.
One might hope that we could warp space-time, so that one could go off in a rocket and come back in the past. But I have shown that this is not possible, if energy density is always non-negative.
Okay. Maybe that's a big if. So, Stephen, you've said publicly that you want us to be a multi-planet species. And who could argue that? I'm with you there. However, I have one mild rebuttal. Because you defend that argument by saying something bad could happen here on Earth. An asteroid, that's runaway virus, rendering us all extinct. And if we exist only on one planet, that's the end of the human species. I get that. But here's my mild rebuttal. Isn't it easier to deflect an asteroid, easier to find a super serum that will combat any deadly virus, than it is to terraform Mars and ship 1 billion people there?
Collision with an asteroid is one of the least of the dangers we now face. The last collision was 70 million years ago. Nuclear war, climate change, and pollution are now much greater threats. Of course, it would be impossible to move the population of the Earth to a new planet, but if we can establish independent, self-sustaining colonies in space, it would ensure the survival of the human race in the event of a disaster on Earth. Leaving Earth will also give us a new perspective and cause us to look outwards rather than inwards. It would also unite us to face the common challenge.
So, Stephen, if we ever really develop...
As far as that goes, being a multi-planetary species and going to other places, and it would give, as Stephen hoped, it would give us a new perspective and a common goal. My question to people who are thinking this will solve our problems, beyond just merely surviving a few people on another planet or Mars. And I think us going to Mars is a great thing, man. That would be great to watch, just like the moon landings and all that. But to think that things would be better for us, just look at how rotten our history has been. We can't get along with each other. We are warring with each other. That's our entire history. You know, the problem of fallen man would need to be dealt with before we can live somewhere else in peace and harmony. Think about it. If we can't get along now, how will we get along on Mars, underneath the Earth, underneath the Earth, underneath the Mars, underneath the soil? Because that's where you would have to live in order to escape the radiation. You can't live on the surface. Living in cramped quarters, if we can't get along now, you know. Anyway, I don't want to get too far into that, but let's go to the next thing they talked about, which is interesting, downloading your brain. Mitsuyo Kaku talked about this.
The technology to upload your brain into some computer, providing life after death, or at least consciousness after death. Would you be first to sign up for that?
My body hardly works at all, because I have motor neuron disease, otherwise known as ALS. So getting rid of it would be no loss, and would spare me discomfort. Being immortal as solely a brain, I could see the future, unless I was terminated by someone switching off the computer, or by a computer virus.
So, Stephen, religion has been around for thousands.
Okay, well, the idea of downloading your brain and sort of achieving eternal life on a computer hard drive, this is being floated around. Like Mitsuyo Kaku is the first one I heard talk about this. he talked about this like in a number of different programs, and I just think it's a misapprehension of what man is. That are we just our thoughts? Are thoughts just the merchant properties of chemicals coalescing together or something? Is that, and somehow if we can capture the thoughts, we capture the person, and that person can talk and he can interact with people just merely by having his brain downloaded? Really? Think about that. I mean, I need to make another video, and I will hopefully in time, that this this idea ignores that man has a soul. He has a part of him that is not material. Again, that's beyond the scope of really what I want to talk about here, but this is a very interesting interview. And like he said, he would have you turn light to someone to there was a computer hard drive crash, right? All right, let's finish up on the religion thing here. Question.
So, do you have any sense of what religion will be in the future of civilization?
Religion was an early attempt to answer the questions we all ask. Why are we here? Where did we come from? Nowadays, science provides better and more consistent answers, but people will always cling to religion because it gives comfort, and they do not trust or understand science.
Who's his favorite non-scientist?
Okay, I'll just make a few comments on the religious aspect of this. He says that religion will persist when people don't trust science. Remember, the scientific pioneers were Christians. They were theists. So it's not a matter of trusting science. There's theists who do just as good work as non-theists do in science, even today. So this idea is flawed, really. It's really sad, because religion is something, if it's correct, if it has good fruits, it's a good thing for mankind. It shouldn't be tried to, it's something that shouldn't be tried to be eradicated or spoken evil of, as far as those people those religionists that are helping mankind, right? So enough said about that. Again, another video I will make in the future, hopefully, that will delve into religion, the good, the bad, and the ugly, I might call it that. All right, well, hey, listen, thank you for listening to this interview. There's a longer version of this, I think on YouTube, it's like 45 minutes long. I got the shorter one from Neil's Facebook group. And so I just thought to keep this brief, we just cover these few topics. So if you like this video, again, hit the like button. If you haven't subscribed, please do. If you know someone that might benefit from this channel, pass the link on to them. In the description box of my initial video, you'll find a number of tracks you can download and send to people. And that would be great, because that's one of the biggest ways you can support this channel, is by passing on these tracks that I wrote and downloaded here. And again, it's in the description box of the intro video. So you have a good day, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.